Hey folks, and welcome to Bike Matters. Today we have the Naxeon I AM Pro in for review, and at a little under 7 grand and coming chock full of tech, is this one of the best beginner 125 electric bikes currently on the market? Stay tuned, let's find out. So, starting with the styling of the Naxeon, and I think it looks great personally, but it could be seen as one of them sort of more maybe sort of Marmite style bikes. It really does sort of scream futuristic, sci-fi, and sort of everything kind of just from the future. It really kind of divides opinion, I think, but wherever we took it, it was always turning heads, people were always looking, and it always just gained a lot of attention and a lot of questions. There's not really a lot of bikes in the market that kind of look in this sort of styling way, and it really is quite bold of Naxeon to come out with something that looks just totally wildly different and so futuristic. Coming in 4 colorways, white, blue, grey and black, all the corresponding flashes of colour and accentuating details, Naxeon really are targeting that kind of sci-fi futuristic sort of vibe. And not only are they doing that, they're doing that with the planet in mind too. Now, one of the most important aspects when considering any electric vehicle is always its battery, how much range you can get out of it, and also how quick it can recharge as well. The Naxeon here doesn't disappoint either. With 111 miles of range, the Naxeon should be good for most people's commutes, without having to top up throughout the day either. And when you do need to charge, it comes with Type 2 charging, which is quite impressive for a bike at this price point. Although it can also be charged through a standard 3-pin. But when you do need to charge, the Type 2 will get you from 0 to 100% in only 3.5 hours. And also just gives you the flexibility to charge whether you're out in public or just need to top it up or fully charge it the night before your commute the next morning. Now, whilst it may not look like it, the Naxeon is actually CBT and A1 license category approved. It comes with a rated power of 10 horsepower and a peak power of 14 horsepower. That may not sound like a lot, but it does have a boost function, which means that the Naxeon will get from 0 to 30 miles an hour in only 2.8 seconds. And with the boost function engaged, which only lasts about 15 seconds, we'll also get up to a top speed of 72 miles an hour. Now, out on the road, the Naxeon always felt really quick and quite punchy as well. As you would expect with electric, it has really instant torque and also instant power. And it is, of course, limited to about 72 miles an hour top speed, much like all of its other petrol equivalents. But the thing that sets it apart from its petrol equivalents is the way that it gets up to its speed. It feels a lot quicker. Maybe it's just a gut feeling, or maybe it's actually true, but it just feels like it's a bike that's much larger than its power would suggest, especially out on the road where you can really test it out. And when it's time to get insurance for your motorcycle or scooter, make sure to check out Lexham Insurance, who have been providing insurance solutions since 2000 and have several exclusive schemes only at Lexham, so make sure to go to lexhaminsurance.co.uk, link in the top right, to get a quote direct with them. In terms of wheels on the Naxeon, we have a 17-inch at the front and we've also got a 17-inch at the back. This is paired with a 110mm wide tyre at the front and also a 140mm wide tyre at the back. On the road, that translates to the fact that the Naxeon really feels quite well planted. It feels sure-footed and it gives it a really good handling characteristic. In the middle of them, we have a 4-piston radial mounted caliper at the front and a 250mm disc. And going to head on to the back as well, we also have a twin piston caliper with a 220mm disc. These are combined with dual channel ABS, and on the road, that basically it just felt like it had a lot of bite and it had a lot of feedback, albeit it took a while to get used to the scooter style configuration levers for me personally. But when I got used to that, the brakes had a lot of punch and a lot of bite no matter what speed you're traveling at. Now, to go along with the quite wide wheel and tyre setup at the front and the back, Naxeon have gone with quite an unusual and quirky choice of a quadrilateral girder fork setup at the front with a monoshock. This comes with preload adjustment, as does the monoshock with preload adjustment at the back. On the road, it did feel really quite sprightly and it handled really well. and you could even throw it around some corners, and it was actually quite confidence inspiring. If I was being nitpicky, however, I would say that the suspension did feel a little bit unsettled on more of the potholey, faster 60-mile-an-hour A roads. However, that might sound bad, but around town, around city, the Naxeon did feel more at home, and it started to actually feel really smooth. I think it's just more of the terrible roads that we've got around here that made the Naxeon feel quite unsettled. Having said that though, and saying that the suspension was maybe slightly unsettled, the Naxeon was a real blast to ride. Punching out of corners, flicking on the little boost mode, not too often so you don't overheat the motor. The Naxeon really was quite confidence inspiring, and it really encouraged you to kind of ride a little bit quicker. It doesn't have to be though. As I say, it's really comfortable around town, and the silent motor really helps along with that. It's especially quiet even for an electric motorbike. Just a quick reminder, but don't forget to hit that subscribe button to keep up to date with everything bike matters. Now, on to weight, and the Naxeon tips the scales at a rather low 137 kilos. That's light for a lot of 125 bikes, even petrol, let alone considering the fact this has got a battery, your motor, and it's also packed full of tech as well. Expected for a bike like this, we have LED lighting all around, with an LED headlight at the front, LED tail light at the rear, and also these rather cool LED ring lights on the handlebars here. Now in park mode, they light up white, but when you go into drive mode, they do light up orange on either side for the blind spot detection sensor that's situated right at the back here. Now that's only scratching the surface on an Naxeon though. As mentioned, we've already got the blind spot assist. It's got a 120-degree sensor right here in the middle of the tail light. That detects anything from here to here and illuminates it with orange bracelet ring lights on either side. It's a really good safety feature, but that's not all this bike has got. We've also got cruise control and traction control and a whole host of really cool tech on this bike. We have 4 rider modes. One of them is the snail mode. So the bike's got a sensor in the seat, and it detects if you're sitting on it. If you're off the bike like we are now, then it will go into a snail mode as they call it, and limit the bike to, I think it's about 5 miles an hour maximum top speed. That's a really good safety feature. Basically means if you're coming across the bike and it's in drive mode and you just happen to flick the throttle, then the bike won't fly off and go into the middle of nowhere. On top of this, we have HD cameras at the front and also a HD camera at the rear. The one at the front will act as a dash cam, which will record every 3 minutes and also has a highlight function. And the one at the rear is good if you stick it into reverse mode, which is good if you're on a hill and the bike's a bit weighty to push up the hill. It'll engage a camera display on the screen. And on top of that, we also have GPS, which enables with the alarm system on the bike. And also, it's also got an electronic steering lock, which is enabled by the NFC card that Naxeon supply, or can be controlled through the Naxeon app as well. Now, given the amount of tech and equipment on the Naxeon, it is a wonder how they've produced it for the price of 7 grand. Not only does it have a lot of tech and equipment, but everything you touch on the Naxeon feels really high quality, and it feels like they've put a lot of time and effort into making it feel nice as well. There's not a single component on the Naxeon that feels cheap, and that does speak volumes of how they've actually managed to do that. I think it's a really well finished bike, but only time will tell with its build quality. Now, keeping control of all the tech and equipment on the Naxeon, we have a 7-inch colour TFT display. Now, coming to this, I would have expected it to be a little bit slow or laggy, but given the fact it's powered by Android, it's actually really snappy and really responsive. What we can control on this, we have our typical main display, we have our tyre pressures front and rear, which is quite nice to see. We obviously have our battery and our range, and if you press this little button here, we have our access to our Type 2 charger. Moving on, we have our navigation, which is quite intuitive and easy to use. And moving on, we have all of our data. I typically don't really use it too much, but I suppose it's quite nice if you are more into your stats and sort of tech. That's basically just displaying again your tyre pressures and all your power consumption figures, and that could be quite important actually, your motor and battery temperatures. Moving on, it's a little bit more further into the tech, and we have your trip status and your charge status and so forth. And one that's quite interesting, if you move forward, you have your dash cam and also your recordings from the front camera that we talked about before. Going on to that, we have a whole host of settings and configurations. You can basically, on this bike, you can configure it to however you want your bike to be. Like I say, previously we did have problems with the seat sensor, and when you go into that problem, you can then select different controls and you can turn things on and off, which is really nice to see. Effectively anything on the Naxeon that you can adjust and see a sensor for, or let's say like the blind spot or the seat sensor, the ABS, the traction, anything you want, you can then go into the vehicle control and you can basically adjust most things. That's really nice to see from Naxeon, and it's nice to know that you can make the bike how you want. Now around the dash, we have all of our switchgear, except on this model, we have buttons for indicators. Personally, I would prefer a toggle switch. I found that was a little bit difficult to use. And the only niggle I did find with it as well was that Naxeon haven't utilised these bracelets for green indicators on each side. Instead, they remain blank when the indicators are on, and you just get a little flash on each side of the display. I did find that was a little bit hard to see in daylight, but you do have the backup, the fact that Naxeon do have an automatic cancellation feature, which you can configure with a certain amount of seconds to your liking. Aside from that, everything's pretty standard. You have your cruise control, your reverse function, your highlight captures, and obviously your hazards, horn, and standard light configurations. One thing not to forget is the boost function here. Now, one thing that's a little bit different on the Naxeon, you don't get your standard key, you get an NFC card. This is also in combination with the Naxeon app that you can get that also functions with the NFC and Bluetooth. Once you turn the handlebars on the Naxeon, you literally just tap the key there and the bike will lock. And it's also got an automatic steering lock as well, so you don't even need to touch that. Now the bike is armed, and it's also got its GPS and alarm enabled as well for extra security. Now, moving on to the seat. And this caused a couple of problem points for me when I was riding the Naxeon. But the good thing was, the problems were easily rectified through a setting in the dash. Now, the main problem I had was the bike getting stuck in snail mode. When it got stuck in snail mode, I was sat on the bike, I was about to ride it, I'd come off the roundabout, but it thought I was off the bike, and of course then the bike wouldn't go by 5 miles an hour. I then had to come off the seat a couple of times just to try and get it to engage properly, which it did fine. But then we have since reliably been informed that Naxeon have since updated the seat. Now they've updated the seat in 2 ways. One, to combat the fact that a lot of people, including myself, found it too hard. And secondly, they put more sensors all the way along it to combat the fact that it does have, on early models, the issue with getting stuck in snail mode. You might have noticed on the Naxeon a couple of really quite nicely designed panniers. Now, unfortunately, this is the only storage option on the Naxeon. There's no under-seat storage, there's no storage anywhere else. However, these are an optional extra, which is official through Naxeon, and you can get these for £250 with the racks. Now, onto the competitors, and with the Naxeon being so different to anything else on the market, it can be a little bit hard to draw any comparisons, although some can be drawn in the form of the BMW CEO 2. Now, this comes with a similar power output and also similar weight, but differs in the fact it's got 14-inch wheels front and rear versus the 17-inch seen on the Naxeon, and also it does come with a slightly better 2 hours and 40-minute range from 0 to 100%, although the Naxeon does take 3.5 hours. Now, this might seem initially good, but you do also only get 56 miles of range versus 111 on the Naxeon. And this is only standard charging too, whereas that has Type 2. We also get upside down forks versus girder forks with monoshock on the Naxeon, the 2-piston caliper versus a 4-piston at the front, 750mm seat height versus 800 on the Naxeon, and a top speed of 59 miles an hour, which is a lot slower when you compare it to the 72 miles an hour seen on the Naxeon as well. Now, being a BMW, this does also come in at £1,200 more. Moving on to the Maeving RM1S. And another comparison can be drawn with its slightly higher continuous power output, 9.7 versus 8.7, a similar weight and slightly larger wheels front and rear with the 19-inch versus the 17-inch, standard charging, although it does have an optional Type 2 adapter, whereas we have to remember the Naxeon does have Type 2 as standard, and with a retro styling, it does also come with a split analog LCD dash versus a 7-inch TFT,
80 miles of range versus the 111, and it does come in at 6 hours to get from 0 to 100%, which is a lot longer when the Naxeon only takes 3.5 hours. Now, being a retro, this does also come with conventional forks versus the girders seen on the Naxeon, and we do only get a 3-piston caliper versus a 4-piston on the Naxeon as well. It does have a slightly lower seat height at 787mm versus 800mm on the Naxeon, and it does only come in at £270 more.
So, what are my final thoughts on the Naxeon now having ridden it? Well, I think it's a really nice bike. It handles really well, and I like the amount of kit and tech that you get on it for such a competitive price. I like the fact that it's got really good build quality, initial impressions that is, and I also liked some features, like for example its boost mode, which just enables it to get off the lights a lot quicker, out of a difficult junction, or overtake slow moving traffic. Obviously there were some problem points. I did find some problems with the seat, but we have said that Naxeon are willing to address that and have updated that on their newer models. That's really nice to see and does build some sort of reassurance into the brand. However, before they've addressed that on our 2024 model, it is nice to see that you can just go into the dash and turn sensors off if they are becoming a bit problematic. It's really nice to see, and I really think Naxeon have done a really good job making this bike for such a competitive price. So enough of me. What do you think of the Naxeon I AM Pro? Is it too much tech, or is it a step into the future? And in the whole world of electric vehicles, do you think that electric motorbikes have a place in that? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to keep up with everything bike matters. Ciao for now.